Hello! So this evening we are going to take a flight from one airfield to another in Australia. We're going from Bendigo over to Shepperton, and we're going to be showcasing the Orbx sceneries for both Bendigo and Shepperton. So we are in the parking lot, as you can see, at Bendigo Airport. These are just north of Melbourne. I'll show you them on the map in a moment. So before we do that, I thought it might be nice to go and have a look around the airfield at Bendigo here. So we've got the RMIT University Flight Training Hangar here, and we've got the various buildings for the airport here at Bendigo. So you can see it's really nicely modelled. You've got power lines and things going on, and lighting gantries, and all the painting's really nice around all of the taxi areas, and a huge hangar infrastructure down at the far end, and baggage storage here. So let's go and have a wander around the terminal as well. So just descending down using the drone camera to do this. So we'll go into the building, and you can see around the building in the departure hall we've got a snack machine, you've got waiting area, and there's toilets behind the wall here, I believe. There we go. And obviously you've got the check-in desk, and obviously an information area where you can do hire cars, things like that, I guess. And I believe in the real airport this door would be out to go airside. So again, another doorway, and then you're out to airside of the airport. So again, nicely modelled buildings and structures. It's really well done, actually. There's our aeroplane we'll be using today, the TBM 850. And if we just zoom up into the air for a moment and have a look around the airfield, there's some really nicely modelled assets around the airfield, like hangars, and there's a helicopter parked at the far end there, you can see, and tank farms. And if we come down past the far end of the airfield, there's a flying club over here with the flag hanging on the mast outside. There's a service hangar a little bit further along. So I believe this is the Bendigo Flying Club. If we come into their badge, there we go. So you've got a nice seating area with tables and chairs. Bendigo Aviation Services, there we go, and there's a service hangar here. So if you want to go and get your engine repaired, if you've just gone and not started the Kodiak properly, for example, you need a new engine for it, that would be the place to go. Obviously another tank farm, so you've got avgas there and jet fuel. And as I said earlier, there's this huge infrastructure of hangars here. Anyway, let's come back over to our aeroplane. You can see there's various windsocks and things around the place. So I'm going to stop using the drone camera at this point and press the insert key to come back inside the aeroplane, and we'll run through getting the TBM 850 up and running, if I can remember how to, that is. So if we go and look overhead, we have to lift the crash bar, as they call it, put the generator on main and the source on battery. Then we need to go and turn the oxygen on, which I believe is this switch here. And then down on the instrument panel down here, we're, oh, look at that. That is moving. Now, is that me doing that, or is that... I'm going to pull the Xbox controller that I was using to control the drone camera. I believe it might cause havoc with the aeroplane. So I'll just check the volume levels are still working, having played with that. Okay. Seems very quiet, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, so I've had problems with the Xbox controller drifting in the past. It can cause mayhem with the aeroplanes. Anyway, radio master switch to on or up. So I have to remember what we're looking at now. On the instrument panel down at the bottom left, I've completely been thrown now by that. It's thrown me enormously. So radio master is here. There we go. And that will power up the GPS. Obviously that's going to take a little while for that to go and capture satellites. It will go through its test sequence first anyway. Oh, it's a real job to remember the procedure sometimes. And then fuel selection goes to auto. So fuel fuel controls are up here, so that goes to auto. Then we go and put the nav lights on overhead, and then we go to the flight controls, put the propeller RPM to max. We need to get control of the fuel again, so auxiliary boost pump goes to auto. And then in terms of engine start, we turn the ignition to auto, we put the starter on, and that will start turning the prop in a moment. You'll see the NG come up, there it goes, just starting to move, and it's capturing satellites now on the GPS while we're doing this. When this comes through 13%, which is any time now, we can increase or advance the fuel condition lever to low idle. You can see the ITT goes skyrocketing up, but then falls back down gently. When we get to 50%, which we're just going through on the NG, we can turn the starter off, and we can also put the fuel control lever to high idle, fuel condition lever even, and then we can go and turn the gyros on at this point. So let's go and do that. So down in the de-ice section, we're going to go and turn on the inertial separator. We're going to go and turn on the EFIS switch, which is that one. So the two screens come on in front of the pilot. We can go and set our target altitude for our cruise between the airfields. We can also calibrate the altimeter while we're here. We can arm that altitude, and we can go and set a vertical speed to get there. So on the ECS system, which is over here, we can go and put the bleed on auto, we can put the air conditioning to on, and we can turn this arrow so it points upwards. I need to read up on this to see exactly how it behaves under which circumstances. So we can, the transponder is already on standby, so that's good. AP trim master can go to on now, and the weather radar can go to on if it's not on already. So here's the weather radar, it's already on, which is good. And the AP, the autopilot, will stay in test for a few moments, so we can wait for that to happen. We can go and turn the taxi light on overhead, so that's there, and put the flaps as required for takeoff. So we can see the flap here, but I'm going to do it on my controller, so that's going to go to the takeoff position. And what else do we need to do? It's pitot heats and stall heaters. So we got pitot and stall heaters there. And we should be almost, yeah, that's pretty much ready to go. So in terms of lights and things, we wait till we get to the holding point for the runway now. So autopilot has aligned and tested. We can clear the master cautions, which came on earlier. I think we're pretty much good to go. Or hopefully we are. So, come off the parking brake. Let's turn the head tracking on. I'm just going to centre us up in the cockpit so we can see where we're going. So gently increase power, and we're rolling. Turn the aeroplane around. Head off towards the runway. So this is actually a runway we're crossing onto here, but we're not going to pay too much attention to too many rules today because the airfield's completely clear. And we don't have air traffic control, so we don't have to ask for permission to cross runways or to navigate along them, so we're good. So we're going to take a right turn here. You can see we've got a slight crosswind on the main runway when we turn around in a moment. Whoa! It would help if I looked where I was going, wouldn't it? It just shows you the amount of torque we had from the propeller there, and of course the wind caught the tail as well, pushed the tail right, nose went left. So you have to be ready to catch these things if you get a gust of wind and you're just rolling, not looking what you're doing. Okay, so let's get up to the holding point and bring ourselves to a halt, and then we'll go through the final few things we need to do before we take off. So I put the parking brake on just for a moment. We didn't actually get as far as programming the route in, did we? So let's go and do that while we're sat here. So if we go for the flight plan page and put the cursor in here, we're going from YBDG, which is Bendigo, enter, and we're going to Shepperton, which is it's a free piece of scenery from Orbx, by the way. Shepperton, YSHT. So we'll go and key it in with the keyboard, YSHT, Shepperton, enter, and press flight plan again, and it comes up on the display. So when we turn around, this is interesting. YBDG. I'm just going to have a look at this. Okay, yeah, so it's doing the straight line route. Interestingly, it's not showing up in magenta, but we'll see if it changes that colour when we actually take off. Again, a warning come up. I'm not entirely sure why. So the transponder needs to come on, the landing lights need to come on, the strobe light needs to go on, just straighten us up on the runway. Okay, shall we go straight out? So increasing power, keeping an eye on those dials as we do so, also watching the propeller RPM and the NG, holding a straight line. We can rotate at 100 knots and we're straight into the air at 100 knots. You can see that crosswind is playing havoc with us, so let's have a look from outside as we do that. Look at that crosswind pushing us, obviously, because we weren't inside keeping an eye on the track. Okay, so it fascinates me that this hasn't gone magenta on the display down here. So we can turn the inertial separators off, the landing lights can come off. So we're slowly turning towards the direction we're supposed to be going. We can reduce the power and the RPM now. So let's increase the range on this, because obviously we've got a lot further to go than it looks. Now this is where this is fascinating. If we pull this back to page 1, it doesn't know what part of the route we're on, which is interesting. I wonder if there's a bug going on here. So what we might have to do is put the focus in here, go to menu and activate leg, enter, and now it knows. So we're coming back towards the leg. We will center the heading bug up on the direction we're going, which I've just done. The course knob is not moving, and it's not aligning with the GPS. It's almost like it's broken. I think we may have a a malfunction in the aeroplane actually. This hasn't got the GPS coordinates, has it? That's fascinating. I wonder if we go and before we start diagnosing things, let's just get the airplane going in roughly the right direction, and let's see what is working and what isn't. So do we have heading mode? We don't. It's not turning right. So I think the system may be broken. I wonder what's gone wrong with that then. Interesting. So the TBM 850 is inoperative at the moment. Unless we've got a failure going on, maybe. Reset all failures. Is it something to do with that? No, the engine looks good. Let's put the yaw damper on anyway. So it's just doing pitch and roll hold, but this is not picking up the plan. I wonder then if we were to go to the old radio kit, I wonder if this will allow us to fly heading. So you can see, where's the little nav map gone? We're just coming down towards the route here. We want to be flying 5-9 degrees. So let's go and put the heading bug on, say, 63 and go heading. And that's working. Okay, so it's just the GNS 530 that wasn't working for some reason. And it's leveled us out at 5,000 feet, which is what we'd asked for, if you remember, on the altitude pre-selector. So yeah, it's just something going wrong with the GNS 530 for whatever reason in the 850 at the moment. Okay, we'll make do without it. So we're off to Shepperton, YSHT. So let's have a look at the engine gauges and see how fast this thing will go in a straight line, shall we? So we'll go and push on the power. And we'll increase the propeller RPM almost to the red line. I'm just aware in this aeroplane you can damage it. So we're going to keep an eye on the airspeed now and see just how fast this thing will go. Oh, we're pushing torque a little bit too much, aren't we? So do we control torque with power or propeller RPM? I think it's pretty much automatic, isn't it? No, we're doing it with power. Obviously you can balance it off with RPM as well, but I just want to keep that torque just underneath the yellow line if I can. There we go. Otherwise we risk damaging the engine. So that's fascinating then. So do we have any beacons we can use along the way? Yes, we do. 212 for the non-directional beacon at Shepperton. So at least we get something to count down the distance within in the cockpit. So we want ADF, and we want this to be on 212. Interesting. I can never remember how these things work. ADF will give us direction, hopefully. I wonder, we could almost use the Melbourne VOR as well, couldn't we? So the Melbourne VOR is show information 114.10. We could play games. We got the KNS 80 here. Oh, so what's it called? No, not KNS 80. Yes, KNS 80. So we could play games with this, couldn't we? 11410. So let's go and work this out on a little nav map. If we want to get straight to Shepperton, if we figure it's fairly accurate, so we go measure distance from the VOR, and we want to the middle of the airfield will be fine. So 9 degrees magnetic, 78 miles, 11410. So there's, put this on RNAV mode. One 11410. 9 degrees, 78 miles. If I knew how to work this properly, I'd be a genius, wouldn't I? There we go. So we now should be able to switch the HSI over to use GPS. No, sorry, to RNAV. Turn the course round. And it's going to give us the distance down to it as well. So we can use this now to navigate to the airfield. So can we then use nav mode on the autopilot? Will it track this correctly? Looks like it won't. We're going to have to use heading mode. I think this is a bug within the simulator itself, that nav mode will not follow an RNAV frequency. It doesn't know about it. So it's going to go for the course that you had for a VOR. So I imagine it will just go for north if it doesn't understand. So we'll stay in heading bug mode, but we'll monitor the CDI. So we were trying to follow in the 59 degree radial. So you could do this here. You could set your course for 59 degrees. Obviously you can see we're off to the side of it. But you see, that doesn't make much sense, does it? 30, 40, 50, oh sorry, 59. It would help if I did things correctly, wouldn't it? Although Sim's frozen. 59 is there, that makes a lot more sense. So we're off to the left, to the right, sorry. So we'll intercept. We're 21 miles out, 20 miles out. Which you can see is what's going on here. So we're using vectors from Melbourne via RNAV to get to Shepperton because the GPS appears to have failed on us for whatever reason. We're doing about 190 knots, which is absolutely ripping along, isn't it? Let's have a look from outside. We're in a hurry. Okay, so we're on our way into Shepperton. 18 miles to run. So should we drop down? So what's the altitude of the airfield at Shepperton? So if we show information on Shepperton, we've got airfield elevation of, if I show the correct page, of 375 feet. So if we come down to 2,000 feet, and we arm that distance and come down at say 1,000 feet a minute. Be interesting to see just how fast this gets if it gets close to 250 knots in a descent with the engine going flat out. So we're getting closer to the CDI needle as well on the way, which is good. We can probably see the airfield, to be honest. Not quite just yet. 14 miles out. But we are getting closer to the bug, so we're just banking right slightly to turn in towards the needle. Coming in at 59 degrees. What's wrong with the GNS then? That's very strange. Normally it's so reliable. Maybe there is a bug with the aircraft that's come about via recent updates. You never know. So you can see VOR signal, because we're so far away from where we're actually reading it from. We are 80 miles away almost, so it's wavering all over the place. So 10 miles to run. Let's start coming off that power. If we sit up, actually let's go to head tracking now and put the yokes back on. So it's going to be interesting to see Shepperton, to see how they've modelled it. So 8 miles to run. We're still descending, got 1,000 feet to go. So the beep there is we're within 1,000 feet of our target altitude. Seven miles to run. It's going to be over here, isn't it? Just the other side of the forest. Should we check that on the map? So on the edge of the town, past just over the river. Presuming here. Still going very fast, so I'm going to pull the RPM back, lose some speed. The speed really doesn't want to come off, does it? Well, though we're only just levelling out at 2,000 feet. So let's slow the prop right down. And the speed is finally bleeding off gently. So you can see the airfield down here now on the edge of Shepperton. So I'm going to cut off the autopilot so we can go and do a circuit of the area. So we'll do a right bank here and we'll start looking out the window to have a look at the airfield. And then we'll figure out from the wind, actually, but on the way in we could have a quick look at the map to figure that out, couldn't we? Where are we? So wind is 2 knots, so it makes no difference to us. We can pick the prettiest route in that we decide to. Very cool. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is modelled very, very well, because I gather this is the home of Orbx. I'm not entirely sure. Or at least the home of the people that developed the airfield. Whether it's a native Orbx one, I'm not sure. But it makes sense with it being free, I guess. So I'm going to extend along and come in visually. Do a left pattern in. So we're just dropping down to that beep there is because I haven't got the undercarriage extended. So should we watch that happen if I go and extend the undercarriage? Actually, let's do this from outside so you get to watch it. So we're just extending downwind. We're about to drop the undercarriage. It's very cool, isn't it? The animations in Flight Simulator are awesome. Okay, so let's get the landing lights on and the taxi light as well. So let's have a look at that, see how bright they are. They're not that bright in the daytime, are they? Okay, looking out the window, spotting the runway, and there it is. Flaps are down, so we're just managing the descent really now. So hold the attitude and use the power to regulate our descent rate. Getting a bit fast. Playing with the descent rate there to see what we can get away with. Every flight's a test flight for me. I had a curious situation with another airplane recently where there was no I think it was it the Learjet or the Phenom, where there was no stall klaxon. Obviously I think this one has one, but I don't really want to test it on approach. So as soon as we've landed, I'll plug the Xbox controller back in and we'll go and have a look around the airfield buildings. It's interesting, the textures are here, but they're not that high quality. So although it is free, so I can't complain, I'm just wondering if this was going to be a bit of a showcase for the developer, or has it just been upgraded from a previous scenery package for another simulator maybe? Maybe not. We'll have a look. We'll reserve judgment until we get out with the aeroplane and have a look around. So they want us to come around this side. Trying to do this without mowing him down. There we go. Okay, so the parking brake is on, and we can pull the engine back. Whoops, wrong. This is the penalty of using head tracking, I'm afraid. It's not super exact. Or sorry, the Tobii eye tracker isn't. So there goes the power, and obviously the master warning is going to come on because we're depleting the battery, whether we like it or not. So let's just whiz round and turn off the auxiliary boost pump. Turn the fuel selector, can go back to manual, but you could leave it on auto, to be honest. We'll turn off the bleed, we'll turn off the air conditioning, we'll turn off the gyros and the lights, and we'll turn the battery powers off. We'll turn off the avionics, radio master. That's interesting, that was still lit up even though I've pulled the battery already. And we're pretty much there. Okay, so we can play games with opening the doors on the TBM 850. That's fascinating though that the GPS went wrong. I wonder why. So let's go and plug our Xbox controller back in, which will kick in a dialogue in the simulator. Probably. No, it won't. And we can go to the aeroplane. So if I press 5 on the keypad, that will do it. So we can now go and scroll around. That's interesting that it's reset the speed of the drone camera, having replugged it back in. Yeah, it's put it back to 30. I had it at 5. Okay, so let's go and have a look around this Shepperton airfield. So it has cars in the car park. It doesn't have an interior for the buildings, or not for this end at least. There's the Valley Aero Club. It has got hangars with aircraft in now, which is a nice touch, and they've got a polished floor. Very cool. Very nice looking 152 and a 172 alongside it. I think it's a 172. So what do we have further down? Stacks of cones, some outbuildings, a fuel tanker, many more hangars, and a nice airfield with lots of gravel, but the gravel texture is just painted onto the floor. It doesn't actually have any three-dimensional aspect to it, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, it's still pretty good, and it's free. The Shepperton scenery is free from Orbx. So there you go. So I guess I've got some looking up to do to find out what's gone wrong with the GPS in the TBM 850. I'm sure somebody will pipe up in the comments having seen exactly the same thing and maybe come to a conclusion themselves of what caused it, but if you do know, let me know. That'd be really useful. Otherwise I'll start digging myself. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. So that was from Bendigo over to Shepperton, just north of Melbourne in Australia. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I'll see you again soon.